All right, let's go ahead and get started. Want to welcome you guys to Mason County. If I've said it before, and I mean it, the prettiest and best county.
Parts of it.
Ow. Wow.
You can tell he's got.
There's the door right there.
He's already leaving.
Parts of it.
He can see these things now, he's already leaving.
So now let me tell you what I really think about your county.
I've seen parts of Shelton. I said, yeah, no.
So let's go ahead and go around and do introductions. We'll start with Mary.
So I'm Mary Cuny, as County Commissioner over in Spokane County, our current chair of our board, as well as then the WSAC president this year.
And I'm Eric Johnson, I'm Executive Director for the association.
Sharon Trask, Mason County District 3.
Kevin Schutte, District 2.
Randy Northern, District 1, I spent years on WSAC as well.
That's right.
And Mark Neary, the Mason County Administrator.
Very good.
Okay. And then I'm just going to turn it over to you guys.
Okay.
Great.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having us. I appreciate, because I know it's not your normal time, and so having you guys all get together to have us here. So thank you very much for accommodating. We're excited to be here. Again, as WSAC president, it's been an honor this year to be doing this, and this is our third courthouse visit so far this year. So so still feel like I'm new at it. But really appreciate the opportunity, and kind of coming the back way, it is really beautiful. So I agree, it's very beautiful here. And just it's fascinating to get a chance to then understand each county's uniqueness. Because it looks like you guys have a lot of shoreline issues that we have a few lakes that lakes that we have shoreline issues with, but not like what you guys are probably dealing with over here. So I think it's really great, to gives me that perspective, and then helps us connect too, so that we're all in it together. So I'm gonna just then turn it over to Eric and let Eric just start the conversation.
Great, well, thank you. So Commissioner Cooney's being pretty kind. I don't think she was very impressed with the look of the time in mud flaps, frankly. So she's cleaned her tune up in the past 15 minutes or so.
Read the audience.
That's right. I don't know. So that's why she's elected and I'm not. Well, first, thank you, the three of you. You all three have, in some degree, and Mark as well, been really engaged with WSAC, engaged with the association in one way or another. So, coming to do a courthouse briefing here compared to in an area where we have brand new commissioners or we have transition. For example, we're going to KidSep this afternoon. Katie Walters is new. We have a new commissioner, former senator who knows us a little bit, but from a different perspective. So it's always fun to come and do a courthouse briefing when there's really a group that we really have connected with in many ways. So it's fun. It makes it a little easier, a little more engaging. So I really look forward to the conversation today. Want to be sensitive time. How much time do you have? So we'll make sure we
Scheduled an hour.
Okay. All right. So we'll be humping along. So these take between it depends on how long you all start to talk. That's the
We don't talk much.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll really kind of probably have to bifurcate some of the things. Just you know our business. We represent the commissioners, the council members. There's now 141 of them because Spokane County went from 3 to 5 because of a law that was passed in the state of Washington. They're now elected by district, 5 different districts, and so not countywide in the general. It's 5 separate districts and an appointed county manager, which is they have. So.
Have you figured out how that works? I remember a thing from the Attorney General years ago that expressed that you represent the whole county if you are elected by the county as a whole and do the budget as the county as a whole, that you are actually required to represent the whole county. That changes if you're actually elected in the district.
Yes, so we're actually having some, I could go into a lot of crazy conversations, but even looking at how our committee appointments are, because 2 of them are very city-centric, city of Spokane districts. I mean, literally have like 3 precincts in it, unincorporated. And so when you have like our transit authority, that already has city representation, should those two commissioners be on that representing the county, because their voters are not county voters, unincorporated county.
Yeah.
So those are, as we just started this in January, so there's a lot of discussions that are going on, to that. And to that, they're out, now making decisions. I'm the unincorporated kind of valley, city of Spokane Valley, Liberty Lake, south rural area. So they're now making land use decisions on my citizens that are voting, my voters, that their voters really don't have any say over,
That's rough.
So it's a very interesting dynamic. We were talking about it at dinner, it's a time to have a charter, because it really isn't the best way to govern. And they're trying to say they do represent they're voting on behalf of the entire county. Well, no, you're not. You're voting on behalf of your voters, which was our state representative that, kind of forced this upon us. He was saying, this is gonna get you closer to your voters. Okay, so then stay with your voters. So.
Yeah, that's who you really represent or not elected by, so there's 4/5 of your county that maybe academically you're thinking about, but politically, you're really responsible to just 1/5.
Is that similar to how it'll work in Thurston? Is they go to 5?
No, Thurston
They'll
statute,
still
Thurston
run.
went to, so Thurston used the statute that's for counties over 300,000. This required counties over 400,000 to do this specific way.
Gotcha.
And
It's
so,
just us.
and so the counties, it was targeted. The counties over 300,000 can do this, but it retains the 5 commission voter by district, countywide, in the general. So the 2 that are up this year will be just in their districts during the primary, and then we'll run countywide in the general.
I think a lot of it really is predicated on the population that you have within your county and the different groups that are represented. And, in Yakima, it's gone through this similar issues, where you have areas that have a high population of individuals that don't ever feel like they're represented. And so they'll come forward and say, well, we want to go to district based, because then we can elect somebody that's going to represent us.
Yeah, both Yakima and Franklin utilized the new, Yakima County and Franklin County just utilized the new Voting Rights Act as well. They were being petitioned and settled.
I'm never a fan of things like that, only because I've watched cities when they change. There's that old quote, when everybody's responsible, nobody's responsible. And so the more everybody thinks they're saving everybody by doing it, but I just see you have a lot more people that are less engaged and less responsible for everything else that goes on around it, because they can just say, no, it wasn't me, it was them. And
Right, and a lot of times when you see district voting, then you also have, someone who's elected countywide to kind of, as I say, herd the cats. We don't have anyone elected countywide, so.
it's true.
So
And
it's,
your county manager's appointed by the
Appointed.
commission, so
Yes.
you gotta be careful there.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic, so we'll see how that goes. And then our secondary set of clients really are your directors, the directors that report to the boards of county commissioners and the county executives, whether it's the administrators, the county engineers, and the solid waste folks who are in a meeting over in Tacoma right now, Pierce County, human services, public health, planning, all of those folks are our secondary clients that we support in a variety of ways as well. So I do have a booklet here, and it's more to keep us on task, so we don't wander too much. And so we'll try and stay to that. We've met our board president now. We generally go east-west, but Jamie Stevens, Councilmember Stevens, was term limited out, so he no longer stayed as our immediate past president. So we have 3 folks from Eastern Washington, which is pretty unusual. We generally have 2 west, 2 east. You can see our board of directors. The county's over 180,000, each have a seat. Our 4 officers, then 4 from the east and 4 from the west regions. And so that comprises the board of directors who, frankly, they really hold the fiduciary responsibility. They hold the kind of oversight for the organization, but they don't do public policy. That's retained by our legislative steering committee, of which every county has a seat within that. So that's our current board. We elect a board on an annual basis. On page 7, ARPA, we are American Rescue Plan Act and before that, the Coronavirus Relief Fund. We really did a lot to try and collect information so we could really speak with one voice on behalf of the 39 counties. The ARPA is 1.5 billion, so it is a significant amount of money, as you all well know. We have to obligate that money by 2024, expend it by 2026. We don't have the collected information yet from the April reports, so we're hoping to get that to be able to show where we're at on expenditure, where we're at on obligation, and what's left to be that's unallocated. We were doing this pretty aggressively because we really were unsure what obligated meant because of the potential clawback of these federal dollars. It appears that obligated meant it's left the federal government sector, so we've been able to really get that kind of defined. But if you have local assistance travel consistency fund monies, we still have one tranche of those resources still to come in. We're hoping that those will come in here pretty soon, but they do have till the end of September to allocate those second tranche. So we're doing a lot to collect information, provide technical assistance, and just if you do have anything on ARPA, let me know. And I'm not sure how you all are doing with your expenditure and obligation. And some are still holding it for lost revenue, I know, and so they'll be spending it over the next couple of years in lost revenue too. So if there's anything on ARPA that you want to chime in on at all, but
we've allocated all of it, and currently are kind of getting updates from the different organizations that it was allocated to see where they're at on spending it. And I think in some cases we may be getting some of that money back, and the commissioners will have an opportunity to reevaluate and look at some potentially new projects or new issues that have arisen, and to say, would we like to redirect that money here, but we want to get it done before 2024.
yeah, good. I think there's even some discussion right now of over-obligating, so that in case you have other things that need to go further down a list, you've actually, quote, obligated to maybe projects that are further down a list, so you can always say that, yes, these are available because we've obligated it to them just in case.
Well, that's the challenge, I
Yeah.
think, and so that'll be a decision that the commissioners get to make on some of our entities. As an example, one of our larger PUDs here, 1.5 million to build a new substation, and what is their plan for getting that new substation online? And so they're saying, well, we'll have it on by 2025, 2026. Well, I don't know if we're real comfortable with you not spending that money that long into the future. So I think there needs to be some communication with administration within the PD and some of these other organizations to say, how can we spend down these funds in an appropriate way on these projects and prioritize what gets spent first. So if you're gonna use it there, you better use it for engineering and design.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think we're nervous. I don't think we're nervous. I think we're pretty confident that people are in fact going to expend, not leave much on the table. But
Yeah.
we're still working through the unobligated component. On page 9, maybe we'll just skip ahead into 10 and 11 as well, just to give you a quick snapshot of our financial. This is a big piece of what the board of directors spends its time on, is really making sure that we are financially sound and the oversight of our fiduciary responsibility. Our 2022 budget, 2023 is about the same. We're generally about $4.5 million is generally what our organizational budget is. About half of that comes from dues from our member counties. You might have heard we were in some significant discussions with King County as whether or not how intrigued they are with staying as a member, a partial member, wanting maybe a greater say in organizational decisions because they pay more. So we're working through operational issues, we're working through bylaw issues. We've got a couple of bylaw committee meetings coming up. The board had a very lively meeting back in May in Grant County to talk about this, to start those discussions. So, I can't tell you exactly where we'll end up, but there's a lot of effort to try and find something that would work for all 39 counties. But I think there's a strong desire to have a 39 county association, but also not compromise in a manner that that has a negative effect on the overall membership as well. So a lot of discussion going on.
I'm very inclusionary, but as somebody has been there, I'm gonna remind you of a story that occurred. I'm trying to remember what the issue was, but we couldn't get it passed, we couldn't get it through the local, and you guys sent me with a few others to go and meet with them, had me be the leader on it because the guy was gonna kick our ass. And he was very aggressive. I wish I could remember the Republican had a big long beard.
Dave Taylor.
Oh,
And then
probably.
he went right
Mr.
after,
Bell.
and I went right back, and when it was all over with, he agreed. He says, you know what, I'll tell you what. He called us milk toast at the time. He said, you guys are milk toast. He says, I'm gonna stand in front of it because you guys are milk toast. You don't. He said, I will not only not stand in front of it, I will deliver it if you will come together on a plan on how to do this, especially the way I was talking about, which is everything we were saying we wanted. And we couldn't believe that he had agreed to do this. It was going to be a game changer. And then we went out into the rooms amongst ourselves and couldn't do it because the bigger counties had the bigger say. And literally it became milquetoast. And we were not able to go back to give him a definitive answer. And so he never carried it in. And I never forgot that because that was probably one of my saddest days as a member of WSAC.
Yeah.
We had an opportunity of a lifetime and we couldn't do it. So maybe the idea of giving them even more, it was hard enough with them having equal weight. I don't even know how it would look if you gave them preferential weight. I just want you to know that. That was my lowest day as a WSAC member, because it was, he meant it. He was not lying to us. He would have taken it in and led the fight for us. I wish I could remember the young man we had working for us at the time. He went on to do something else, but he was blown away that we had this opportunity, and then we did nothing.
Interesting. No, I appreciate that because that's going to be part of the bylaw discussions is what do we do and how do we do it. And it seems like a big piece of their issue is on, you know, as we have this discussion in March or May, is on the legislative steering committee. So, you know, so do we, you know, would one of those compromises be where it's not, Donna Constantine could delegate to a staff person, you know, to be at the LSC and be, just provide that one vote. You know, so those are some of the discussions versus weighted voting. I think there's not a lot of people that see weighted voting as a good thing. And as, you know, we talk about, you know, they may want to say that they're subsidizing as the largest contributor to WSAC. But when you look at it on a per person basis, based on population, I've got little Garfield County, who's 2,200 people paying $7,000, you know, which is I think like $30 a person, and King County's at 23 cents a person. So, you know, so it
I'm a commissioner. I was a port commissioner for a year also, and I was on the Hill representing the ports on the day. And you guys called me up, and the office called me and said, "Where are you?" And it's like, "What do you mean, where am I? Why are you calling me? Who am I?" Well, we saw that you hugged these people, and we have a group that's waiting for you to go to call off the floor all the people you were hugging. And so you don't even know. But that day was very important because it brought a lot of people off the floor. That was an effective day. And I'm not Seattle, but we had effective. So you can pay a lot of money and be completely ineffective.
yes.
Yeah, well, so we definitely have some work to do, and the board's working on it, members are working on it, we're working on it at the staff level to try and really discern how we can hopefully find a solution that works for all 39 counties. So, so definitely stay tuned to that. You know, including, you know, we used to have urban caucuses and rural caucuses. Do we go back to having an urban caucus that can have an urban agenda or for a larger county, whatever you might want to call it? Because even a King, Pearson, Snohomish have large rural swaths and large rural activities. So, you know, so we've talked about that. There's a lot of different ways and levers to potentially pull to kind of build a solution that could work. So, a lot going on that.
So stay tuned for that.
Yep,
Yeah.
stay tuned for that. You can see what the combined dues are for everyone, about the 2.4 million that we collect in dues there on page 12. Advocacy is the biggest thing we work on. We had probably one of the most successful advocacy years we've had in years. All 4 of our legislative priorities passed, dealing with Obviously, the big thing that passed for us was the .09 extension of the rural economic development tax, about $50 million a year that will come back to almost 3/4 of the counties that will get those resources. So major victory for us in that. We really appreciate all the work that was done by many of you on that one. We're doing a jail study that we have underway. It's a really important piece of what we see the future. We estimate right now there's between $2 and $3 billion of capital needs within county jails, and there's a lot of new things happening, from sentencing guidelines to jail standards to the fact that we can't recruit and retain, to what's happening with behavioral health, and are we diverting more folks out of that system. So there's just all these things that are emerging, and before we spend $3 billion into our infrastructure, knowing what we're building for is going to be really important. The goal is I will tell you, be honest, our goal is to go to the legislature with a big ask then, which is, we are running your state criminal justice system, and so what is that going to look like? And you need to help us fund, because giving us local sales tax may help build facilities, but it is not enough to either build one or operate one. So we're going to be telling that story as well. And then the behavioral health network adequacy standards, that was another one that we worked on, and that was really targeted to make sure these managed care organizations that are delivering Medicaid services into our communities, there was a network adequacy, there was standards that were established so that, particularly into areas that are more rural, where the MCOs are not necessarily making their money at, they still have to meet the same standards that they're delivering into the urban areas as well. And then we did the Federal Transportation Fund Exchange, and that was to help about 22 counties that they would now get state funds rather than federal funds in the transportation system, which would allow them not to have to go through the Federal Highway Administration bureaucracy to expend resources. So we'll see. We did have to compromise on that. We only got 95% on the dollar. DOT kept a little administrative money, which is about $1 million. And it was starting to get to the point where county officials were saying, is it worth us $1 million for us to keep these dollars? And I think they were still saying it's probably still better for us administratively.
A smaller county it is. There's no comparison.
But for us, it was starting to say, what if it's 90%, or what if they ask for, where's the limit on that? Legislative Steering Committee, page 16 really shows you who we have. Thank you, Commissioner Trask, for trekking to Olympia. It's a commitment, whether you're close and only a drive, 45-minute drive away, or whether you're coming for 6 hours. It's still a commitment, but we really do appreciate you coming. Every county has representatives. The 4 county executives have representatives, so it's a 43-member committee. East and West co-chairs. We are now in the process of starting to work on the 2024 agenda. We're going back to the list that we had created coming into 2023. We started with 100 plus ideas to almost 200, narrowed that to 30, got that to 4. We're going back to that list of 30 to say, okay, what else is on that list? And then we'll start to also add some new things in. One of the items that has already emerged as a potential issue is the fact that we can't, there's a long waiting list for corrections officers actually for training up at the Training Commission. So we need more slots, so we're starting to be able to recruit some and hire some, but we can't get them trained. So trying to do some work associated with that. So advocacy is a big part of it, no doubt about it. I don't know if you have any questions or any comments about session, or if anyone has any questions about session.
Yeah, we were talking about how you've got the rural counties and the urban counties, but I'm really impressed at how well we communicate in LSC to decide what the priorities are, because I think we all understand it's for the counties, period. It's not for King County or just Pierce County or just for Spokane. It's all the counties. I think that was probably one of the hardest things for me too in the beginning was like, no, I'm there to fight for Mason County, but no, we're there to support each other. And so hopefully King County will see that and decide that their investment is worth it.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that's obviously the goal. But I think they look at our 4 priorities for last year, and in particular, well, we think jails is gonna benefit them, you know, 3 of them really were heavily benefited towards rural counties. They're truly noted, the federal fund exchange was, the rural excise tax, and behavioral network standards were largely targeted at rural areas. And they had a couple others that they thought were more beneficial further down the list. The overall membership did, so.
What did the urban counties, specifically King and Pierce, not receive that they wish they would have?
King wanted 1% property tax cap lift.
Oh,
That's what King wanted. That was King's number 1. And they made their pitch to the group. It was actually probably Derek Young from Pierce that said, I don't think it's politically probable, because we do a kind of a political feasibility look, and Derek was the one from Pierce that said, I'm not sure it's really gonna have a chance. Did it? I mean, it was certainly in the discussion towards the end, but I don't know if it's still that politically feasible.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Ds wanted to do it, they would have done it.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the number 1 thing that they really wanted.
And they blame us for?
Well, we didn't take it on as a priority.
Yeah, and they blame us for that, thinking that that may have had an effect, that if we'd have taken it on, that it would
Could
have
have,
gotten passed.
yeah, could have.
Well, maybe something that they feel like they weren't represented.
They were not represented by the association.
$500,000 a year for the association
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do this stuff, and they didn't
Yeah,
include my priority.
they could have taken $600,000 and expended it on
Lobbyists.
contract lobbyists.
Yep.
Yeah, to advocate for their positions. I think that starts to be their discussion.
Yeah, that's kind of where
Legitimate
they're
question.
thinking. And it is, but talking to other legislators that I know, you know, is that gonna provide more influence for them? I don't think so. I think a lot of those legislators are like, they weren't gonna vote for it anyway, you know, all those things, and sometimes even, I mean, you guys know, at the legislative level, there's a lot of, oh, that's a King County issue, we're not gonna worry about it, you know? So I don't know how much it would really influence if they had more lobbying.
I think that I personally think that there's a benefit to having, obviously, a county-wide organization that can come and talk to the legislator about issues that are facing all of our counties. But then when you need that individual support for projects within your county, that's where we enjoy the services of a private lobbyist to help kind of take those details into decision makers and convince them that Mason County, under this big umbrella, would like to have this piece.
Yep.
I'm surprised that it didn't go further, because even back when I was there, that was always one of the things that came out of WSAC as a top issue.
It's still something we support, it just wasn't one of our top legislative priorities for this year.
It was on the list.
It was on the list.
But
Yeah. Here in Mason County, we haven't raised the tax, even taken the 1% in years. But, you know, the ability for others to do it.
Yeah, for us, it's generally a local control issue. You know, if someone wants to have that authority, you know, we generally believe in local control, so therefore, if a county wants to do it, we have a number of counties that haven't even taken the 1%. We have other counties that have banked that because they didn't take it. We have some
We always
counties,
bank it.
we have some counties that have chosen not to even bank it though,
Wow,
as
yeah.
well. So, and then you have counties that, you know, if they could take, you know, greater than 1% would, so.
I think one thing that's cool about WSAC also is that we have council members or commissioners put on like the tax task force,
Mhm.
and so study groups. And so it's great that we have a voice in a lot of different things. I think we even have some on the jail study, right?
Yeah, jail study, we've got a couple folks on that too. Federal priorities on page 20 and 21. The biggest one for us that we've started to really articulate a little bit more forcefully on, besides PILT and SRS, which are kind of ongoing ones for us, but is the Medicaid inmate exclusion. The fact that someone loses their Medicaid benefits at the point of arrest, it's a huge piece for us. There's 2 good things in that arena now. The juvenile they have removed the Medicaid inmate exclusion for juveniles. They have not done that for the adults yet. Hopefully we'll get confirmation that the Healthcare Authority they have submitted what's called a 1115 waiver for the portion of the Medicaid inmate exclusion, not everything, unfortunately, but a portion of it dealing with behavioral health. And so, which is important. We're also trying to further get that defined to make sure it includes any medical stabilization that needs to occur prior to then receiving your behavioral health treatment services. So it's got to be, we got to stabilize someone medically before you start behavioral health. That should be included as well, so we're working on that. Congress still has, I think, 3 bills in front of them to do what they did for juveniles, which was to remove the Medicaid inmate exclusion. So hopefully, we'll see some movement at the federal level. They've had this in front of them for a few years, but whenever you talk to the delegation, and here Kilmer's been really understanding of the, you're Kilmer, and do you have part of?
Yeah, not anymore.
Used to, not anymore, okay. Because I thought, yeah, you did have part of them for a bit, yeah. So anyway, so Kilmer, I think he's actually even signed on to these bills in the past. So just, if there's a federal issue, and I know you have other federal issues, just remind him of the Medicaid inmate exclusion, that this is a big piece for us. The cost of inmate medical is a big part. Most of these folks are
I
coming
think you're
in.
right to separate it out like you did. How do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time? You got juvenile, now we try to get the behavioral health, then we try to get the other.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that you separated it out, you have a better chance of actually accomplishing it.
Yeah.
My concern would be the forecasting of the cost associated with it most likely is based on previous populations that we had in our jail. And our population is nothing like it used to be.
Yeah.
And I don't foresee with the changes in law that that's going to exponentially grow back just because COVID's over.
Yeah, it probably won't. It's hard to say, particularly, and depending on how we approach diversion and what happens with diversion. It's hard to say. They clearly have done at HCA the forecasting cost of this, and the state has to pick up the proportional. We don't pick up the proportional share of Medicaid. The state does. But our county, inside our county jail, generally, we are generally most 85% of our people are generally there less than 30 days. But you never know what happens in that 30 days. But then we hold 15% more than 30 days, and that can be an expensive population depending on what's going on. So it's, this also has the potential to impact the state penitentiaries as well. It's a Medicaid exclusion, so they have a population base. Yep.
Well, and I know, I think 80% of our population in our jail is pre-adjudication, so, they haven't been convicted.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
they should.
So anyway, we are really in tune with this one, both working at so we've had 2 policy bills and provisos passed by the state legislature that we've pushed on forcing the state into seeking the 1115 waiver, so we're good with that. We're a little disappointed at the pace that HCA has moved, because even if we get this, they're now, I probably would, if someone probably would have taken a screenshot on my face when they said if we get it this year, it'll be 2025 when we implement it. It was like, if they would take a screenshot of my face at the time, but Juliana said it was priceless, because she was on the Zoom call with me. It's like, what? 2 years now? Okay, so anyway. So we're pushing that implementation piece as well. But some progress anyway. That's, I think, one of the good things for us at this point. Federal Relations Committee, you can see who serves on that. If anyone wants, Commissioner Trask is on that. If anyone ever wants to join that, please feel free to do that. It's open to anyone. We can have more than one from a county. Public lands payments, obviously a big piece of what we do. I know Mason, it's a middle of the road county in terms of dollar amount, but it's it's a significant amount of money. Road fund gets the benefit of it, and then county current expense fund, and PIL comes in, really for your choice to how you utilize it. So litigation, the biggest news in this world is we Pacific County, so we now have our 3rd co-plaintiff county, Pacific County.
So you did get your West.
Yep,
We
we got our West Side County. We confirmed that yesterday. We were in Pacific County, and so we're working the final details out, and we're changing and doing some modification to our communications plan because we have Pacific County now. So we're ready to, pretty close to being ready to file. So I would not be surprised if July, August, you don't get the communication that we have filed the lawsuit. You will be well apprised. We've got a good media packet that if you get questions about why, the history behind it, the 4 decades of studies that have shown how the state's failing to meet their obligation. A lot of things happening in this world right now. We have a lot of counties that are actually failing to, actually they can't recruit public defenders right now. They can't get them. The courts are paying attention now because there's not representation available. I mean, it is really starting to.
We're at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
Our district court judge is very active in that process of appointing attorneys. That you know, you have all these case limitations that your defenders have, and so since we are down a couple, we didn't have enough people to represent, and we have a district court judge here that started appointing people to that process, and it's been
Appointing attorneys that were just.
yep.
Huh?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, so it's
That
interesting.
we're qualified by law.
Yeah, we've had some,
Yeah, there's some challenges that come with that, right?
Yeah.
challenges is a good way to put it, yeah.
Conflicts and all sorts of things that might.
I think it's just a good old fashioned separation of powers discussion, you know.
Yeah.
Funny. Well, so, we had that in Asotin where he decided to set the rate too. Of what they were.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Yeah, doubled it. It was a visiting judge too, I think, at the time.
Even better.
Because the other judge had
Wow.
gotten.
Where was this, Lincoln, did you say Lincoln County?
That was Asotin.
Asotin.
Yeah, far southeast.
We should
They
take
had
that
a
commission
judge that had
upstairs.
been removed from the bench because of shenanigans, and so, visiting judge said, well, we're having trouble, we're upping the rate from 75 to 150, or, you know, and just, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're on, you know, we feel really good about elements of the case. The big question really is the constitutionality responsibility of the state to pay. That really is one of our big elements. The second piece of that is we're pretty confident that it's going to be pretty clear to demonstrate that there really is an inequitable done. The state's doing nothing to oversee that, to assure that, and that's a problem. And so we would see a remedy into the system probably. What that remedy is we've not really articulated, because we're more interested in, we want the system paid for by the state. And we'll operate the system you want, or you take it over. We're probably pretty okay at the commission level with saying, yeah, have it, have
It's
it.
all yours.
Now, your public defenders may not like that idea. There are some groups that don't like that idea.
Is Pacific enough for you on the west side? You and I
It's gonna be
talked
enough
about
now. It's gonna be enough now.
We talked at
We're-
risk pool
We're not
about
gonna,
this issue.
we're not gonna,
I was very supportive,
Yeah.
always have been. It was one of the only things that,
Yeah.
when we were talking about bringing money in for legal, that was one of the first ones, that type was one of
yeah,
the first
we're
ones that
ready
made
to,
sense.
we're ready to file. I mean, in part because really, it's a really opportune time right now. We have counties, the courts are paying more attention to this. Since the courts are paying attention to it, the Supreme Court, the Board of Judicial Administration had a workshop on it. The Chief Justice is paying attention. We think when this case gets to them, they're gonna be really interested in, if you thought McCleary pissed them off, we think that this could be an equal McCleary type
Yeah.
thing. We are currently paying $174 million a year, the 39 counties are, so, you know, $340 million a biennium, so it's a lot of resources. And there is additional conversation going on new caseload standards, and new caseload standards that could be halved. You could go from 150 felonies to 75 felonies. So, a lot moving within this environment.
Yeah.
Very scary. Very
I
scary.
thought the data that you all put out a couple of weeks ago, the graphs that show the investment being made at the county
Yeah, the
level was really
dashboards.
important. Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
the
that was really
dashboard.
informative. And I think we've made a really good effort to increase the funding that we put into indigent defense here, but it just does not meet the demand. I mean, so whatever we can do to lend support
Yeah.
to that, just please let us know.
Well, what the state's gonna be arguing, because they argued this in the Davidson case out of Grace Harbor County, Grace Harbor County was not brought into it, it was a juvenile case. The state basically argued we fulfilled our constitutional duty by delegating the authority to our agent, the counties, and number two, giving you taxing authority.
Oh.
They had met their constitutional duty. And so the court remanded it back to Thurston County Superior Court. ECLU said, we're not really that keen on arguing or the counties have enough money to pay for it, et cetera. So they dropped the suit. But that's really was the state's, and the state will modify that argument undoubtedly as they go forward as well. But we're going to have to be prepared, and we have 3 counties. We're hiring an outside person that will be doing some more. So we'll do some micro level and some macro level budget analysis around taxing authority. Sales tax is a good example. I think Mason County is a good example. You don't have big sales tax generators in comparison to a King County. So per capita, your sales tax generation is a lot lower per capita than other. So yeah, you're giving a sales taxing authority, but it doesn't create an equitable system because of the manner in which you don't have sales tax equalization like you used to, which was to equalize, so everyone got kind of an equal amount of sales taxes. So there's also an interesting case out of, I know we're laboring onto this, but there's an interesting case in the city of Seattle that was kind of a precursor to, Seattle School District was a precursor to McCleary, was the court really indicated that you could not depend on going to voters to pay for constitutional duties.
Through property tax?
Yep, through levies. Yeah, through levy. Yeah. So kind of interesting. So seeing how that plays into this as well. So lots of different things moving in on this. So time is right for us. I think we're ready to go. We were ready to go, interestingly enough, last fall when Kitsap County decided to pull out, in part because of the remedy issue. Their public defender system didn't like the idea of Kitsap being a part of it because we're not proposing a remedy, and a remedy could be detrimental to the current system. So, and then True Blood contempt sanctions and Blake decision are the 2 other ones we're pretty active in. True Blood is something that we are amicusing in on, and Blake decision is one we're an active litigant in. True Blood, again, we're trying to make sure that counties have the ability to seek penalties from the state if we are having to hold inmates in a county jail when they should be at a competency restoration center. So we, as of February, I think we had 450 or so inmates in our county jails. You bed rate that out, it's about $27 million a year counties should be reimbursed for holding inmates in the county jail when they should be in the competency restoration centers. So Pierce County prevailed in getting penalties. That's on appeal. We'd love to be able to continue to be able to seek that compensatory sanction that counties should be able to go and get.
When it's
in
on
payment.
appeal, who's pushing for the appeal? Is
The
that
state.
Is that the Attorney General's office? Or?
The state of Washington, yeah, probably, I don't know if it's corrections or who it's at, but the state, it'd be DSHS. DSHS runs the competency restoration centers at Eastern State and Western State.
But they'd have standing on their own, or they'd have to use the Attorney General's office?
Yeah, the AG always represents
So
the
that's
state.
what I thought, so the AG's representing that.
Yep, yep.
But it's an AG attorney representing the administrator of DSHS, right? So the administration of DSHS is saying, here's our issue. It's not the Attorney General's office saying, we're gonna take this on as an issue. They represent the director.
They represent the executive branch, yeah, the client is,
Correct.
you know, DSHS in this case, which is under the governor.
Correct.
And then the Blake decision, again, is one where we are still engaged. So far, you know, the state has fulfilled financial obligations. They're paying for the reimbursement of legal financial obligations. The Blake decision for us is really about future liability for unknown liability costs. It's the situation where I was convicted of this crime. It was now unconstitutional, but 40 years ago I lost my home because I was incarcerated for 2 years because of this, and lost my job. I was in a custody battle for my kids, lost my kids. The potential liability that's sitting out there from these types of claims is significant. we've seen the class action lawsuit that has been dismissed. You likely could see another class action suit come back. We have been trying to say the state's.
Just missed on what grounds?
It wasn't perfected at the time, yeah, so, yeah. So at this point, we are simply in a holding pattern. We prevailed at King County Superior Court level. We have waited to see what the legislature is going to do, but I think we're going to continue to pursue the case. Now, the state and we in the state had said, you know, let's just see what's going with the legislature. Now I think we're ready to proceed again. So, not much is going on in the amicus world right now. We're talking about the true blood amicus, but I think the courts just haven't really had a lot of civil. They're just coming back out of civil. It's not been a very active litigation or amicus brief period, and I'm not quite sure why that is, except for perhaps the backup in the trial court system. So, because county center is still getting sued. So, on our member services and communication side, you know, we invite you anytime to attend our virtual assemblies on Mondays. We've got a Friday 5. We're doing our County Development Institute for new commissioners, and you haven't been one part of that group for a while, but yeah, 85% every 8 years. So you all, it's a pretty significant turnover and transition. We had a pretty good one the last two election cycles. We had a pretty good transition and turnover. You just have to, you don't have to look very far from you to see the transition that's occurred in the commissioner world. It's a lot going on with that. We're actually implementing a new association management system that will hopefully really give us a better ability to communicate with you all, receive information from you, really have a good idea of member engagement and how we can better serve why people aren't engaging, all those types of things as well. If I could flip you all the way over to, you know, we've got our Coastal Caucus program, our county's caucus program, we have our timber program, so a lot of different ways for you to engage with the membership. Those of you that are engaged in salmon recovery and water issues and want to participate in the Coastal Caucus is a great opportunity. If you're engaged in timber issues, it's a great opportunity with those. The top of, I guess it's actually page 33 technically, is save the dates for our conference, 14th, 15th, and 16th. We're back in Spokane this year. So feel free to join us over there. We'll start really with kind of business day on the 14th, and then part of the conference on the 15th and 16th. So hope you can join us.
We're hoping for good weather on the pass.
Yes, that's right. And issues here that are, you know, really, we've talked about indigent defense obviously is a piece. Are there other real lively issues that you all are working on here in Mason County?
I think the jail is one of our priorities, obviously.
So when was your jail built?
80.
Another 86,
okay.
another 85.
Yeah.
Depends on which section you're talking about.
Yeah, the original
Right.
build.
Well, of course, tort reform and anything like that, that will help us as the risk pool's going out of control, not by anything that they're doing wrong. It's just that in Washington State, our cases are getting more and more huge payouts that are way above anything that's even realistic. It's becoming easier and easier. Where other states have a simple cap that allows them to be able to be realistic and forced to be realistic on some of their payouts. Eventually, it'll become too heavy for all of us to hold. It just is. There ain't no way around it.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously Spokane's one of those cases that, I mean, it's crazy what the juries are deciding these days.
Well, and then the litigators don't want to give up anymore because they can sit there and literally have third, fourth party step in and keep the case carried on, and they'll get their attorney fees, they get everything. And so they're better off, they won't settle for the 50,000 if they think they can ask an incredible 5 million and get 3.5, just by outlasting them. It's a shame. It's a real unrealistic burden that we're all carrying.
Is your jail issue replacement, is it a capital replacement?
Both.
Yeah.
Both,
Besides
you know,
operations.
Yeah, operational challenges there. And I think it's the, you know, as you look at the services provided within a jail, and And how do you do that? How do you adequately provide SUD and mental health programs, and how can those be integrated into outside services too, right? So how do we provide an opportunity for an individual to come in and receive the services before they do something to get arrested and get in trouble? So how do we use this facility to say we're going to treat inpatient stuff and then we're going to in custody stuff?
Yeah, behavioral health, I think, is another, homelessness, you know, all of that, I think it all ties together. Drive by the park right downtown here and you'll see an assortment. But I guess, you know, the building codes, things that I've always been on the list for LSC, definitely are priorities, I would say, for Mason County.
Well, even us who are very conservative about taking on new things that we don't have to take on, we just passed something that will go with the state building code that will increase the cost of building a home by, what they say, $4,500? And we try our best to stay away from any of that. This is what has to be done. You know, you keep rubbing nickels together, you get dimes, you get dollars. Next thing you know, you can't afford to build. Well, that's been gone for a long time.
Yeah, no, we're seeing that in Spokane County as well, and we have the ability, or citizens have the ability to just go over to Idaho, and so they're going over to Post Falls.
And they do.
Yeah,
I know.
and that's, you know, basically hardly any zoning over there, and so they can afford to buy a house over there, but they can't afford to buy it in Spokane County, and it's just getting crazy, and, you know, so then the apartments that are going up, you know, as I say, are just making 5 families rich, you know, that own all those apartment complexes, you know, and making it harder, you know, there's no affordable housing. And then people wanna talk about, well, apartments, and they're getting subsidies with vouchers, but, okay, the landowner is still getting what they need, you know, and now we've got rising rents, and, you know, vouchers aren't always increasing, and just all that is just getting harder.
I look at it with kids, my kids are in their early 20s, mid to early 20s, and so they're establishing themselves in their careers and talking about how do you build wealth, right? And so, you know, you gotta think about that when you're young so that you can kind of establish that. And if all of a sudden their 60% of their income is going to paying rent, then it's pretty hard to build wealth. And if they don't have the means to provide, or a program to provide down payment on their home, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, that whole, you know, building equity which is part of building wealth, you know, we've got really strict and tight condominium laws in our state, and so is there the ability to, you know, they need a little bit of a tweak to it, to rethink more, you know, condominium laws, so that, yeah, so my rent is going towards building equity versus,
Right,
you know,
right. And you
building
know,
equity for someone else.
right, and you know, your mortgage then is steady instead of that constant annual increase.
Oh my gosh, I just saw something for Thurston County. It was crazy, the increases that they had in rent.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
27%.
Again, it's not a surprise. Supply and demand, you only have so
It is.
much.
Yeah. That's where, when I was asking, you know, developer friend, so, okay, so what's affordable housing? It's like, it's still market rate. You know, it's not, you know, we can't, you know, just magically make something affordable.
Well, and the more subsidy you put to it, the more the rates go up.
Right.
There's just no way around that, because you can. Right now, in our little in the little town of Belfair, we have some apartments up above up there, and their rents are $1,600 for 1 bedroom, but the state will subsidize $1,400 of that, so that's why they can charge $1,600.
Well, Spokane at 1,600, and they're just charging it. It's crazy.
But our voucher system now is paying $14.40, I think it is.
Yeah, definitely affordability housing.
Yeah.
Other issues that are?
I think those are the highlights. Or lowlights, depending, I guess.
Exactly.
The challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, the challenges, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the services that you guys provide in the avenue to other county managers and administrators, and it's been extremely valuable for me to interact with those folks and work together on
Yeah,
things, so.
yeah, thanks for coming to the administrators conference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
That was good.
it's funny, it's a group that is so important, but they don't make the time or have the time to really, outside of one time a year, really kind of meet, so they're busy, it's a busy group. So,
Bunch of little worker bees
yeah.
managing us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Madam Chair, you want a motion to, or?
Yeah, first I
You
just want to
did.
thank them for coming. This is, I'm so happy that it's in person this year.
Us too.
It makes a big difference. I think
Yeah.
communications are better when you can talk face to face. So I want to thank you guys for coming to Mason County and
Yeah, well, thank you
see
for
how
having
pretty it
us.
is, even with our low tides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, they used to say when the tide's out, the table's set, so it's not a bad thing having the low tides.
That's right, there you go.
That's
I
right.
love it.
Okay.
Madam Chair, move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.
Thank
Yeah,
Have a good trip up to Kitsap.
Kids have, yes.
Yeah.
Good seeing you, man.
Yeah, not too far. Chris